All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the second episode of the Bottom Six podcast. Today you got myself, Alex, and Trevor Adams as your hosts. Tyler decided to ditch us and go on a bit of a mini vacay, so he is absent for this episode, but he will be returning for the next one. So, Trevor, some interesting stuff that's happened now. Obviously, we just had the expansion draft finish up. And I think we hit some of our picks when we were going through, but I think everyone wasn't expecting some of the other expansion picks that Seattle ended up taking in this draft, and some of them were quite surprising. I don't know if there was a few that kind of stood out to you as like, what the hell is going on? Who even is this guy? But maybe there's a good reason they took this player, right?
Yeah, there were a couple that were kind of head scratchers for I think everyone involved. It's like, if you would have predicted this guy going to the Seattle Kraken, they would have thought you was crazy, maybe. But no, yeah, it was like you had your predictable ones, in which just about everyone got. But yeah, it did have a couple. It's like, what's going on here?
Well, yeah, even like the thing is, like, I thought a lot of their players, okay, maybe they're picking up some of these guys to make these trades because we heard about, there's all these trades that are going to happen like today, this afternoon, 1 p.m., all the Kraken expansion trades coming out. And then you see Tyler Pitlick for a 4th-round pick to the Calgary Flames going back. So they basically wasted the pick, or at least his selection, on a 4th rounder, which I guess who did they get him from? Columbus or something like that?
They got him off of Arizona. So
So there was like nobody worth their time. They're like, we'd rather just get a 4th-round pick. Like, fuck this team. There's not anybody worth their time on this roster.
There were guys that they had the chance to select him, but just, I guess there's nothing that either it was a case of nothing that they were really interested in to the NHL level, I guess, with the 20 and then your extras beyond that. But yeah, Pitlick over to Calgary.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I thought he's a pretty decent player. I know, like, Tyler was fanboying over him because he's a former Oiler and all that stuff. And, funny thing, Flames getting former Oilers. Apparently, those two teams like to swap players a lot. So another former Edmonton Oiler going to the Calgary Flames, amongst others. But, I thought he would be a useful player, at least, like, in the lineup for Seattle. I thought they would put him, like, at least in the bottom 6. Like, okay, here's a guy who can slot in, or at least some type of depth. But I guess they weren't really sold on him in this case, or they're just like, screw it, we got other guys interested in the free agency market. That's what I'm wondering, too. Maybe they already have plans to sign guys, and they're like, we need a little bit of extra cap to get all the guys that we're trying to pull in here.
You got to keep in mind, too, that with the guys they've selected and now having dumped his contract over to Calgary, he's making, like, say, essentially under $2 million. It's like a $175 contract. They've got to spend, like, $10 million just to get to the floor. So it's like there's certainly going to be some signings in which it might have just become a case of you've got so many bottom 6 type forwards that they pick. There's not enough spots on the team.
Yeah, so it's like, why not move them, get something for them? You get a pick out of it. You get your cap space a little more readily available, and you can try to throw it at some other player come free agency time, right? Who knows? Maybe Colorado Avalanche and Landeskog don't come to an agreement. You go, hey, Landy, we got enough money to give you. Why don't you join our team? And, if they're willing just to sign him for whatever the hell his ask is, which, in this expansion team, why not? They kind of needed more top-line forwards. Just going through what they have here, they kind of need some more bigger names. They need some guys who can eat those top-line minutes and kind of actually play ice hockey against those number 1 lines too, right? Otherwise, they're going to have a bit of a hard time against some other teams' top players. So it's kind of like, why not go and just try to spend some cap in the free agency, get some guys that maybe they weren't able to get it done with their current teams, and maybe you can pull up like some more big names over your team, especially since other teams might be bootstrapped with a flat cap system, right? Other teams might not be able to be, I guess, as creative with their cap space as Seattle is in this situation.
Yeah, because there's a lot of teams that are like right up against it, or you've even got your Tampas of the world. You've got to move out like 15+ mil just to be under the cap for next season. It's like essentially the rebuilding teams that have got all this cap space might be able to further develop their rebuilds within the next couple years to maybe become contenders come a year or two from now.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can't really expect them to have the, I guess, Cinderella run that Vegas did their first year where they just went to the finals and almost won it all. I mean, who knows? It's the NHL. Maybe this team does it, but I think you got to be realistic and assume, okay, we need to plan for the future. We need to have some type of, stronghold in place that even if we're not good right away, there's at least, okay, we know in 1 or 2 seasons, we're probably looking pretty good. I mean, most of the roster is going to be pretty young. Some of these young RFAs are 23, 24. So, in a couple seasons, they're 25, 26 years old, kind of entering their prime years. So you're going to think, okay, we're going to be in tip-top shape. We're going to have like a NHL playoff ready team come that time. If you're not making it even this season, if anything, I think they got a decent enough roster. They're in the Pacific Division, which isn't really the strongest. Like they could technically make it, I think. Like I don't think it'd be too big a surprise if they did sneak in there this year.
Because the Pacific's really weird with how the divisions were laid out last year with the North and Central and all the other divisions. It's like now that we're going back to the traditional Atlantic, Metropolitan, Pacific, and Central, it's kind of left the Pacific in a case of Vegas and Edmonton are probably essentially locks for playoffs, but it's like your 3 through 8, it is wide open. Like
yeah, exactly, right? Complete
run.
wild card teams. And that's the thing, it's like completely unpredictable. Where like I mean, who knows? Maybe some of those teams pick up some guys, some of their younger guys kind of come up and pull up on the squad and they fill a role. And so maybe there's some surprises there. Maybe a lot of teams do turn it around and become a little better this year. You never know. Maybe they just struggled because of the division realignment. Maybe they just didn't have a good foothold on some of the teams they played against. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like Seattle could potentially have a fighting chance to snag a spot, even a wild card position coming in here, just because there isn't that clear okay, these guys are very likely making it. There's not too many favorites, right? So they have a chance to battle, and because of how unpredictable it is, since it's their first year and they're this expansion squad, you don't really know what the hell to expect.
Well, let's go over this expansion squad because we've got quite a few names that you've got your big names.
I mean, I already see some names on the forwards here that I know that we ended up taking in our expansion draft. So we were right on some of these picks, like Jordan Eberle, Yanni Gourde, Jonas Donskoy. You and Tyler were good. Correct on Tanev there. I went for Zucker just because I was a fanboy for him. Mason Appleton seems obvious. I don't know if you did. Maybe you picked Colin Blackwell. I feel like maybe you did. I'm not 100%
Blackwell,
sure.
I didn't. No, I opted for Darren Radich in that case. I wasn't on the Blackwell train, which some might have seen it coming, but it just slipped under my radar.
I think he was the guy I considered, but I don't know if I ended up picking him in that instance. And then Jared McCann's the interesting one because we all picked Kerfoot thinking, okay, they're probably just still taking Kerfoot, but they took McCann. So at the end of the day, Toronto gave up a 7th and Holland there to protect, I guess, Kerfoot in a sense.
Yeah.
So I don't mind it in a way. The thing is, I like Jared McCann. I would have not been upset if we didn't keep him. But it was at the end of the day, Dubas did do a good move where he protected one or the other. It's okay, well, if we lose Kerfoot, we have McCann. If they take McCann, then we lost the 7th and Holland or big whoop, right? So I think it worked out pretty well for the team. We have most of our rosters pretty much stayed the same now.
I ended up going with McCann just by virtue of he put up. I was it wasn't a considerable amount. Both McCann and Kerfoot were almost interchangeable. It's their point production, McCann was just a little bit better, and it's they're nearly the same age. They're nearly making the same amount of money. It's just McCann just had that little edge. So it's with this team together, you've got Donskoy, Gourde, and Eberle. You've got Tanev, McCann, and Yarncroke off of Nashville. Then you've got your Appleton, your Blackwell, your Twerinski, Geeky, and Bastion. And then on your defensive line, you've got Gio, Larson, Carson Soucy, Vince Dunn, Jimmy Alexiak, and Jeremy Lauzon. And then you've got your goalies in Drieger and Banachek. And then you've got a whole bunch of lower run guys that will probably look further
the
down the line
extras.
for.
One thing I was actually surprised about is Mark Giordano. I was hearing rumors about how he was a pick flip. And a lot of people were saying New York Rangers were kind of going on Mark Giordano. So I expected a deal to be done this afternoon, but at the same time, he did come out with the jersey on in Seattle for the event. So you got to think the guys that they brought out there, those are like, okay, we're keeping you. Like, you're going to be mainstays in Seattle and you're a main name. So it's kind of like, I feel like at that point, the trade rumors were kind of, okay, this is all bullshit. Like, maybe New York did call and try to get him. But Seattle, at the end of the day, either didn't like what New York was offering, or they decided, no, we want to keep him. Like, he could be maybe not their captain, but I mean, he just was the Calgary Flames captain for how long? Like, I think he'd be a good leader, mentor, and he's still a pretty good player. So why not keep him around? And who knows, maybe you can keep him for another season or two after this on like a cheaper, league min $1 million deal. Because I think he's only got this last year. So I'm sure by then he'll be like, okay, if I want to play, I'm just going to take whatever. And maybe he'll stick around a couple more years. So I don't see anything bad about keeping him in that case. And Alexiak, he got 5 years at 4.5?
That's like 4.6, something like that. Yeah.
4.6, which I kind of wasn't sure. I mean, 5 years is pretty good. Like, I think he's a good defense. I feel like the 4.6 might be a bit of an overpay, but maybe they're thinking, okay, this guy's going to be in our top 4. Like, it's still under $5 million you're paying for him. He's a solid D. We'll keep him for 5 years. He's fucking huge, which is nice too. He's going to grind their other teams' forwards down. And I mean, he still has some upside to him. He's only 28. So I'm guessing you're thinking, okay, he'll be 33 by the end of it. That's not too bad, really.
Yeah, and then the even thing was, there were two things when it came to this expansion draft that, one, it was surprising to hear, and then it's interesting how they've gone about it. So it's like, with Vegas's draft, and same with Seattle here, essentially with all the extra players you want to call it, being you had to go 14 forwards, 9 defense, and 3 goalies. All the extras, quote unquote, were essentially defensemen. That's like Seattle picked an extra forward than what Vegas did back in 2017, but you had a whole bunch of defensemen picked. And most of these guys that are probably going to be playing for their team next year are like 6'5" and above. It's like you've got some big, tough guys that are going to be a nightmare to play against.
Yeah, they wanted that truculence.
Yes, indeed. It's weird because it's like of the guys that you essentially think for their top 6, they picked almost nothing but left shots. It's like you've got Adam Larson, who's a right shot. Your only other right shots that you've got are like your lower line guys.
It looks like William Borgen is a right-handed, but they definitely has Hayden Fleury, Curtis McDermott, Jeremy Lauzon, and Vince Dunn listed as left D, right D. So maybe it's like they can play whatever side. So maybe,
yeah,
Seattle's intent is to play a left D or a left-handed D on the right side in this season. I mean, unless they're playing, I feel like even this William Borgen guy, he's probably not in the lineup. So
no, I presume they send him down to the minors, and maybe he's a guy they bring up later in the year, if injuries come around.
I mean, I know a lot of teams are pretty interested in Vince Dunn as well. So maybe, like, we haven't obviously seen a trade about this yet, but I mean, maybe this is one they're working on where they do need to sign, and he's an RFA, so maybe they're like, okay, we need to do a sign-in trade. I mean, maybe they keep him around. I mean, I wouldn't be upset about keeping this done around if I was Seattle, but it's probably a case of like, okay, we got to get him signed to something before we can trade him, and then maybe whoever they traded to translates to a right-handedness defenseman or maybe a bigger forward that they can have in their lineup. I guess we got to wait and see on that, but it's possible too. Like there is trades in the works. It's just kind of like, okay, they got to finish figuring out their roster and get everyone kind of signed up. And then maybe they start making moves at that point. Or they're waiting, okay, let's see who can get in free agency first. Let's do those contract signings, get our cap kind of figured out for that. And then we can kind of see, okay, out of the guys that we picked up in expansion, what other bodies can we move out to kind of shake this up, make things work, or like we filled their role with another guy in free agency, we can move on type of thing. So maybe the plan is just to kind of figure out their team might maybe more budgetary wise after the free agency, and then kind of do some trades and movement at that point. But at that time,
Yeah,
that way too, you might be kind of handicapping yourself because other teams might have spent all their cap by that point, and they might not even be able to make making a trade is maybe impossible too, depending on the cap. So I guess at the same time, you have to kind of maybe do a mix of both free agents and trades at the same time if you're Seattle.
yeah, because with right now, the only trade that's known of Seattle either be them trading the players in which they got from the draft, or like these insider deals, quote unquote, is like, all right, we'll trade you X so that you don't take this player from us and rather you take someone else. So we'll have to see what develops in these coming days, but it'll be interesting to watch.
That's one thing I actually wanted to point out too. Who was the insider that leaked the whole goddamn Seattle draft?
I think, well, it was kind of a collaborative out of everyone. It's like, I think the main source where you're finding just about every draft pick from hours beforehand would be Frank Saravalli, but
Oh yeah,
every
Saravalli.
reporter was...
Yeah, that kind of like the thing is, it kind of pissed me off. Like, I mean, I guess maybe it was inevitable to happen, but it was just like, what's the point of doing the whole fucking ceremony at this point? Like, everyone knows. Like, I think it was player for player, or maybe there was like one or two guys that was different.
No, I think they had it all knocked down. That's the thing. It's like, being that we're in the off season, it's like there's literally nothing else to report. So it's like they've got to do their job, but
they just did it a little bit savage, I feel like.
It could certainly frustrate some fans for sure.
And I mean, I guess like if you're that reporter and you get that kind of an inside scoop, you're probably like, okay, I have to do it because some other asshole is gonna fucking do it if I don't, and I at least want to get my name, you know, maybe some notoriety or something like that. So you do it, but still, it pissed me off. It's like, come on, guys, like. The thing that was like kind of exciting about today, or I guess yesterday in the expansion draft, was like just kind of anticipating and going like, okay, who are they going to pick? I really wonder. And then the whole list just gets leaked. It's kind of like, okay, I guess it's cool. I know now. I don't have to wait. But it just felt like deflating, like not as exciting as it could have been. I mean, the thing though too is like Seattle's actual expansion presentation was fucking boring. Like, it was almost laughable how pathetic it was, and like the celebrities they were having going on, like none of them could fucking read any of the players' names. It's like you'd think you'd send it to them ahead of time and be like, yo, you got like 8 hours from lunchtime here to fucking figure it out and get the name ready. Here's how you pronounce it, and they would have practiced it. But no, everyone's just like walking up like, who's that? Was it a basketball player, dude? He comes up and he's in a shirt that's completely undersized for his body. Like, it's just squishing on him. He looks completely uncomfortable. And it was Donskoy, I think he was pronouncing, but he's like Donetsk, like Don. I don't even know how he pronounced it. It was so bad.
I don't think you can replicate that.
Like, it was just so poor. That's our guy. That's our guy. Maybe it laughed so hard. I was like, this guy doesn't give a fuck. He's just here to party in Seattle and like get drunk tonight. And this was just like a pit stop on the way, like, of his journey through Seattle that evening. So I was like, okay, this guy, he's just living the life. He doesn't give a fuck. But it just made me laugh, just like the ridiculousness. Like, I looked like he just showed up. They're like, here, put this on. Goes to put it on, just like crumpling his whole body as he's trying to squeeze into it. It's like, come on. Like, you couldn't give him like a jacket or anything to look a little more reasonable out there. You give him that.
No, that's what they opted for, but it's like with them, it's like they were players with the Supersonics team, the NBA team that were around years back now. But yeah, you want to bring in guys that are like from the city or played for the teams in the city. It's like, yeah, that's all in fun, but it's like when you're just hearing some of these pronunciations, it's like, are you just reading this for the first time, or?
It's like who these guys obviously don't even care. They're just there to have fun. And was it a rapper or something? I remember this guy, he was mumbling so hard I couldn't understand anything he said. And then I remember at the end, like, Kevin Weeks is like, yo, like, give me props. And he like ignored him for a second. Kevin Weeks had to be like, yo, like, don't leave me hanging, bro. Like, come on, I'm live on air. Don't fucking leave me hanging. It was just such a hilarious one. The guy's like, oh, okay, yeah. It just made me laugh so hard. I'm like, It's just so awkward, like the whole thing. Like it's like, okay, obviously it wasn't planned, but it's like this dude obviously, I don't know, maybe because of COVID, he doesn't want to do human contact on camera. And it's like and Kevin Weeks, great former NHLer, great tendy when he was here in the league, but it was just like this guy thinks he's like from the hood on live TV. Like, come on, man, you gotta like, if anything, try to tell me what the hell this guy's saying beside you, because I can't even understand what was going on. It's like they brought in the pick, and it was just like, no, everyone was completely confused. They're like, okay, who did we actually get? And then it brings up the name on the screen, and it's like, oh, yeah. And they all feel like, okay, I guess I know who this is. But the whole situation was so ridiculous. It's like, okay, this seems so off the cuff. Like, okay, they plan to have these people out, but it's so fucking disorganized. I guess it's their inaugural season, though, so, they're inexperienced. I guess you can give them the pass on that.
Yeah, and I was like, during that show, it's like we finally got our first looks at the jerseys, and I have to say, those are some pretty nice looking jerseys.
They're not bad, actually. Honestly, like I actually like them more than I would say the Vegas Golden Knights jerseys, which those ones took a bit to grow on me. Just because like, even with the logo, I find it a little kind of like simplistic with the logo, but the Seattle jerseys, they look like they've been in the NHL for a while, and this is something that's like almost evolved over decades of time of like amending the jersey and editing it. So they came out like swinging with their fucking jersey designs and logo design, like right off the hop. It looks good. Even like the logo too. I remember at the beginning I was kind of iffy about it because I'm like, okay, we got to see the full jersey to see how it all fits together. But they hit a home run on this one. I think it looks really good. If I wasn't such a diehard Leafs fan, then maybe I'd consider getting a jersey.
Dude, if you're not a diehard Leafs fan, it's like these days, it's like just like if you had like a certain player of which is like, hey, I like Jordan.
I'll get a Jared McCann.
Hey, get a Jared McCann Seattle jersey. How about that?
Jared McCann. Let's go.
Leave for like 2-3 days.
Yeah, what was it like? Was it even a day? I guess maybe 2 days or something.
It was like a couple days, yeah. But it's like it was weird because it's like when you were looking around Twitter, it's like I think it would have been the day before. It's like they were making it out to seem like through a leak that it was Kerfoot that was going to be the pick.
Yes,
but
I saw
that. Was just some. That's like they did some pre-tape segments for a couple of those teams. So it's like you're trying to get information out, but it's like that's the same thing when we go back to the reporters revealing all the picks hours before the draft. It's like you want to have some element of surprise. So you don't want to just be fed everything to you.
Yeah, exactly. There's got to have to be some kind of patience to this. And if anything, you know what should have tipped off Leafs fans is we got McCann, but we didn't have 20 fucking interviews with him about how he's going to impact the team and who he's excited to play with and his life story and shit. We didn't see one fucking interview with this dude. We didn't even see a picture, for God's sakes. This dude did not appear in the media at all. So if anything, that should be a warning of like, this dude's out of town. The media doesn't give a fuck. They know he's not sticking around. There's no point in interviewing him. So because otherwise it's like if he was sticking around and staying on the team, it'd be like, okay, the biggest story of the year, Jared McCann to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they'd be interviewing him every goddamn day, probably.
Well, the thing was, it's like I think it was almost an inevitability that he was gonna go to Seattle because it's like if he was on Pittsburgh, he's probably the pick over Tanev, and then gets moved to Toronto, he's still the pick because it's like. Yes,
that's the thing. Pittsburgh Penguins lost 2 guys in this expansion draft. They still lost McCann because they gave him to us, who was untaken, and then they lost Tanev as well when they could have just not made the trade and just lost McCann and kept Tanev. So I mean, I guess did they actually want Tanev gone in that case? Like, were they trying to get rid of some of those guys?
I wouldn't see a case to why they want to, honestly, but you never know.
What I don't understand. It's like, why were you willing to take the 7th and Hollander if you're going to lose Tanev and McCann? Like, why not just lose McCann and then you still have Tanev, or maybe they do take Tanev and then you get to keep McCann, right? Like, so unless like they just wanted to get rid of the cap space, I mean, I know it's like Burke and Hextall in Pittsburgh now, so maybe it's just kind of like, okay, we didn't sign these guys. We don't want to fucking deal with their deals anymore. We want to use that money for other players. So maybe their whole plan was like, okay, this is a way we can just get rid of a couple of contracts that we kind of just don't want here anymore. We want to move on. Like maybe they're looking at Ryan Suter. I could see those old guys freaking going like, oh, like we gotta get our good American boy and get him like on their blue line or something like that. They'll give him fucking like $5 million a year or something insane.
Well, honestly, Suter doesn't need the money. It's like he's still gonna get like, even though he's been bought out by the Wild, he's still gonna get quite a bit of money. It's like,
that's the thing. It's like you'd think at that point he'd be like, okay, I'll take like a $1 million payout, but no, I could see teams like going on a bidding war on him, and he makes like $3 to $4 million probably. So he's gonna be fucking making out like a bandit this offseason.
I just hope it's not a case like the NBA. It's like there are some guys in the NBA sometimes where you see it's like they're just gonna take like almost league men. That's like when they're like top of the league, just so that they can be on a team that is essentially like no doubt to win the championship. If you add that player to their team, it's like I hope he doesn't sign like some like $750K deal just so that he can win a cup.
Some players, that's the thing. Some players might do that though. Like they saw what, like with Tampa. I mean, everyone says the 18 mil over the cap thing, but players were signing their cheaper. I mean, even Patrick Maroon did the back-to-back run, and he wasn't getting paid crazy money to do that because he's like, well, fuck, I'm winning Stanley Cups. Like, I'll play here, and I have no doubt that next season too, there might be pretty decent players that consider going to Tampa Bay on cheaper deals just so they do have a chance at it. Because even isn't that what happened with Detroit back in the day when they were just fucking steamrolling the league for all those years? Like people would just purposely like, okay, I can make $6 million on the open market, but I'll just take $3 million from the Red Wings just because I have a chance at winning a Stanley Cup, right? So it's not exactly unheard of in the NHL, but I didn't say it's not as common as it is in the NBA. There's still a little bit more parity when it comes to the NHL, even involving that.
It would just be more of a sense of it's like if you're taking like league man. That's like with Patty Maroon. I don't know his cap hit off the top of my head, but it's like
I think he just makes like $1 million or $900K, something.
It's like he's still a serviceable like bottom six forward, even if you put Maroon on a like rebuilding team, depending on the team, you'll probably see him top six. It just depends on who you're talking about.
Yeah, and what role he needs to fit on that team, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's see too. The other interesting things with the goalies is Chris Driedger. They obviously gave him a contract 3 years, $3.5 million, which is pretty much the ballpark of what I thought he was going to get signed in. And that's a pretty reasonable deal for him. And for a starter paying only $3.5 million, it's not bad at all. And what's Vitek Vanacek? It's when I was kind of looking into him, it seemed like he kind of had to fill in quite a bit last year because he had Lundqvist out with his heart condition that he was dealing with, and then Samsonov had his injuries. Plus, he had like the whole COVID protocol lockdown shit that happened with him. Like he got in trouble for that.
Yeah, that happened to him twice. So.
Yeah, 2 times, right? So it's like this dude. If anything, you could say that this guy was the one backstopping the team to the playoffs. Which is pretty impressive, and he's only 25, and you're going to have him as like a backup, or I guess as a 1B option if you want to kind of rotate Driedger and him. I think that was a pretty decent selection. If anything, I was surprised they didn't take that Minnesota guy you were kind of high on.
I was high on him, but it's like when you compare this, like honestly, it's kind of the same situation with the McCann perfect comparison. It's like their numbers are like almost identical, except the only fact was Kakinen was more the backup. Like he was still kind of a 1B option, but he didn't play as many games as Vanacek, being with Samsonov being out.
So this guy was more proven probably in their eyes, I'm guessing. So they were like, okay, this guy's like been there. And it was for Washington, a pretty good team.
Yeah.
Like he's getting in practice, he's getting slap shots from Alexander Ovechkin at him all practice. So they're probably like, okay, if he can take an Ovechkin one-timer, like he's probably pretty good.
Yeah. You'd think, but no, it's like they're nearly the same age. They nearly have the same cap. It's like you could almost put them one and the same. It's like you couldn't go wrong if you went Vanacek or if you went Kakinen. So to see them take Vanacek, it's like that's no slight to Kakkonen. And it's like, as their third goalie, they end up taking to court, which I'm upset about it. Sure, it's like I didn't quite see it coming because the main thing that I'm concerned over was like, mind you, it's not like a concussion or anything. It's him coming off of that ankle surgery, seeing what will come from it. It's like he'll probably be the AHL starter, barring any contract signings that I'll say otherwise. But he might not come back to form depending on how much the injury affected him.
I guess they're really kind of taking a gamble on him. I mean, it looks like he's only 24 here. He's still got 2 RFA years, so he's on a pretty controlled contract. I'm guessing they're pretty high on him. Like, did he do really outstanding with the Senators this year? I mean, it seemed like you just had fucking random goalies coming out of nowhere and they were just good. It's like, okay, who the hell even is this guy? Never even heard of him, and all of a sudden he's shutting us out. Like, what the fuck?
It was certainly a goalie carousel in Ottawa this year. It was like Murray went down with an injury. It's like Horberg took the net for a little bit. He didn't struggle, then got injured, and then that's when Decord came into the fold, in which he still put up decent numbers. It's like I'd essentially say the numbers he put up would be like league average per se, but it's like once he then got hurt, and then we're bringing in Gustafson. It's like he seems to be what our future might be. It's like, and then even on top of that, we had Forsberg in the fold as well. It's just goalie after goalie after goalie.
The thing, I guess, if you're the Senators too, you're not sweating the loss too much because you have so much goalie depth going on, so many young guys that you can kind of cycle through. It's kind of like, okay, I mean, we liked you, but we got other guys to at least fill the role. So if anything, for a rebuilding roster, like, you can't be too upset about that situation at the end of the day.
No, and to even think of it, they've got the 10th pick in the draft. It's like, yeah, might very well go with a Wallstedt or even Sebastian Kosa with that pick. So it's like, then you've essentially built the team because you've had the last couple of years where you've picked forwards here and there. You've got your 4 solid defensemen, and then now you've got your league goaltenders. It's like maybe 2-3 years down the line, this really pays off for them.
Yeah, exactly. And well, I mean, that's the thing is, like, I think Ottawa's been a pretty impressive team in terms of like rebuilding growth over the last couple of years. Like, I think it wouldn't be too surprising to say in 2 to 3 years they're probably going to be pretty competitive. So if your pick this year can kind of pan out and get on board and like at that, say, 3-year mark be, you know, producing in the NHL and kind of factoring in a role in some sort, I think you're going to be pretty set at that point. Like, I think your rebuild's kind of gone pretty well, I would say, at that point in time. I mean, who knows? Maybe they make the playoffs the next, even this year, maybe. Atlantic looks pretty tough.
Yeah,
I'm a little uncertain about the whole Atlantic division, but I mean, maybe in the next couple of years they end up surprising everyone and making the playoffs and making a bit of a push or making some noise.
This year might not be the year because, like,
it's going to be hard.
You've got Tampa, yeah, because you've got Tampa, who's essentially a lock. You've got Toronto, I'd say it's probably essentially a lock. Florida's even coming up with last year in which they had, in which if it really depends for Florida, for me, it depends on the goaltending situation. So you've now lost Streaker. Now, are you going to be able to get good performances out of Bobrovsky, or are you going to have to rely on Knight to get you good games night in, night out?
Yeah, that's basically what it is. And I mean, the thing is, I think Knight is pretty good, and I think he probably will be pretty good this year. But at the same time, he's pretty young. And are you going to get that consistency from him as a starter? Like, that might be a little risky throwing him in that role. I feel like Florida probably is just going to throw him in that role anyway. Like, they're just going to be like, hey, I mean, Bobrovsky fucking sucks. We got to get somebody in here. Let's throw you in and give you a chance. And I mean, who knows? Maybe Bobrovsky actually has a good season. It's weird because even before he got signed, he had like 1 year he'd be amazing. Then the next year, just complete garbage, backup goaltender. And then, oh no, he's getting nominated for the Vezina. So I thought like we would have one of those situations too after he got signed. Like, okay, year one, not the hottest for him, but, you know, okay, Vezina candidate next season. No, not Vezina candidate at all. If anything, got worse than he was before. So it's kind of like, okay, are we finally accepting like, okay, Bobrovsky is just like he's regressing and he's probably not going to be the same goalie he ever was, or did we give him another chance and go, okay, you're making $10 million, you could do it, become that Vezina nominee once again, and maybe you try to give another run with him. I think that's kind of the biggest gamble from Florida at this point. It's just kind of a shame because it's like, imagine if they didn't have him on the roster, they had that $10 million in cap freed up, they could have kept
just to do whatever they want.
Knight. Yeah, it's like $3.5 million. It's like, okay, you could have easily paid Drieger that, and then you got enough cap space to get another big free agent or make a trade or some kind of big cap acquisition. But it's like now you don't even have that spending cap because you blew it on a backup goaltender.
Well, at this point, you just can't move that contract until he starts to prove himself. In which, honestly, he could probably rebound this year, but then. So it's like you've got those three teams, and you've got Boston, who still very good, maybe getting a little older, so they might start to slip a little bit. Then you add Montreal on top of that. That's like maybe Buffalo, Detroit aren't quite ready in their rebuilds or having to restart to rebuild because at this point, who knows what's going on with Buffalo?
Yeah, they're a dumpster fire. They're just like Eichel's likely out the door. It sounds like he's just like, fuck it, I'm done here too. This place is dog shit. I mean, I guess we'll see what happens with that. It's been kind of quiet with those rumors, but I mean, even with Montreal, I mean, I wouldn't have had faith in them of making the playoffs anyway this year. Now that we're returning back to normal divisions, like I know they had their run and everything, but I mean, they were 18th in the league in points. Like they wouldn't have made it had they been in another division. So I think going back to the Atlantic, which is going to be just a bloodbath, it's going to be pretty hard for them to make it. Plus, now it's confirmed Weber's done for the year, so he's going on IR. Price is getting his surgery, so he's going on IR for how long? I mean, maybe Habs are hoping, oh, hey, if we make it, we can pull like the Tampa Bay thing and then have Weber come off LTIR in the playoffs, and they want to try to do the same thing, but it's like you're going to have to make it. And is Jake Allen and I guess Keith Primo, they're going to be the tandem until Price gets back. It's like you might not be able to make it. Denault's leaving too. It sounds like he's walking. You got your team captain gone. I mean, I guess it sounds like Drouin's coming back, and I guess you got some cap space to work with, but it's like, let's see what trades and free agency pick up, because as of now, the roster's not looking too hot in terms of like a top caliber roster, especially heading into the Atlantic Division. I mean, even the Leafs, though, I'm going to say, like, I feel like everyone's going to expect them to make the playoffs again, but I mean, even with them, it's kind of up in the air if they'll do it too. Like, who knows? They might fuck up too. They might just be lucky enough to make wild card in this division. Like, that's how competitive I think it's going to be.
Yeah, because the thing is you've got to consider that it's like with the team, it's like, will they make playoffs? Most likely, but until you can prove the playoff success, I know it's been repeated many times. You're probably tired of hearing it, but
yeah. Well, it's like, I mean, it's the truth. That's the thing. It's like, even for me as a fan, I'm like, I don't even give a fuck about the regular season anymore. It's like, I've seen them just dominate in the regular season. Then they get to the playoffs and it's like done 7 games, which, you know, in the Boston series, okay, I understand. Boston was like, you know, the 2nd ranked team in the league. We were the 5th ranked team, still pretty close as a competitive series, but it's like, okay, we lost to one of the best teams in the league. I guess you can suck it up in that case. But to lose to the Habs in the fashion they did, it was just like, especially after they didn't make the play-in with Columbus. Like, the play-in with Columbus, I kind of scratched that. It's like, okay, well, they had like 3 months off. It's COVID. It's kind of weird. I guess I can like excuse them. Maybe they just weren't, like, it's a weird year. Maybe they just weren't like kind of hot yet. They were kind of cold. Columbus got on a hot run to start. You know, it's almost like a different season in a sense, right? It's not the normal playoffs. So I kind of made excuses up for them in that year. This year, there's just no excuses. It's like, you fucked up. You were up 3-1. You were dominating that series, even with John Tavares getting his fucking concussion, like, which that was devastating enough. Even with him getting the concussion, you won 3 games straight and quite handily, I might add. Like, game 4, the Leafs won 4-0 I was like chirping my buddy who's a Habs fan, and I was just like, yeah, like goodbye. Like I was just like, okay, you're done. Like the Leafs are fucking dominating you right now. Like this is just disgusting. The Habs look like they have no chance. And I was pretty quiet like leading up to that point because I was like, I don't want to get too crazy. But it was like after that victory, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, Leafs, the fucking best, baby. Let's go. Woo. And then the next two games, it's like, yes, let us like lose a lead and then go into overtime and then piss it away. Because they would, what was it, 3-0? They came back, they bring it in overtime. It's like, holy fuck, okay, boys, like what an impressive comeback. They get like 10, 11, 12 shots in this overtime. Montreal gets 2, and they still lose it. Just on a bad turnover in their own zone. It's just like, what was it, Kokanemi just walks in, wrist shot, okay, it's in. Like, okay, well, boys, you got a couple more chances. And the thing is, like, once game 6 was over and they did the exact same repeat of like going down by 2, getting the 2 to tie it up, and then fucking it up completely in overtime, turning it over again and losing it. That was for me the moment of defeat. Like I didn't even like think about game 7 as like, okay, they still got a chance. I was like, they're done. Like they fucking let Montreal get back. They're in their heads. Montreal is like steamrolling now because they figured out a way to beat Toronto, and Toronto was just like completely deflated. Like game 7, I went in like fully expecting the Leafs to lose, which was probably the most, and I guess, sad aspect of it. It was just kind of like, yeah, I already know we're done just because of past history. The team looks like they didn't even look like the same team as they were prior in the season. It was like, this is a completely different Leaf squad here. Like, are these even the same guys? And I mean, maybe it's because you're missing your captain. You don't have some of that one voice in the room that maybe gets the guy's head straight in those situations. Like Tavares is a clutch player. Typically, I think he's pretty impressive when it's a pressure moment. It's like you were missing him in that situation, so maybe that made a difference. But I feel like I'm just ranting here. It was just fucking embarrassing. That's like all I can say. It was just straight up fucking embarrassing, especially as a Leafs fan. I was just like, I didn't even want to watch hockey anymore. I think I said that in the chat. I was like, fuck hockey. I'm done. Fuck the NHL. Like, I was so pissed. I was just like, I'm fucking done with it all. That's how upset I was with just how, like, on board I was with the Leafs all season. They looked so good. I was like, wow, this team, like, they can do something. Like, they got me believing. They got me fucking believing. And then they go, it's just like, how do I keep enduring these instances as a fan? Like, I'm just torturing myself. My mental health is in question. Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
And, I mean, now I'm getting stuck in the rabbit hole again because the Leafs did the McCann thing, and I was like, Jared McCann? I like Jared McCann. And now he's gone, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe, it's because we needed to protect Kerfoot. I like Kerfoot, too. He did good in the playoffs. Please give me something good, Leafs. Give me something to fucking care about. For God's sakes. So it's like I'm just basically, like, with this season, it feels like I'm just waiting to the playoffs. It's just kind of like, okay, well, hopefully they make it, and then I can see something actually get done in the playoffs. I think that's the shittiest thing about it, too, is I just know the regular season doesn't fucking mean anything. It's like, they can come in first place. It does not fucking matter. You just need to make the playoffs. It's like, okay, just do good enough to make it. I don't even care what position you come in. Come in fucking wild card for all I give a shit at this point. Just make it. Just get in and then do something when you're there. And then I'll give a fuck again.
Well, speaking of teams that haven't had the greatest of playoff success, including this past year, the Oilers. So they lost to Winnipeg in the first round. And if we bring it back to the expansion draft, they end up losing Adam Larson, one of their top 6 D-men. That's like that. Really,
I know Tyler's crying in a corner right now because of that. I don't want to accept it. Which, to be fair, I mean, I understand. Like, you traded Taylor Hall for the motherfucker, and then now he's just taken by Seattle. And it sounded like Edmonton was kind of offering similar to what he signed for in Seattle, but that just leads me to believe, like, he was just sick of the Oilers shit. Like, he was just like, I'm done. Fuck it. I'm going to Seattle. I'm done being here. This is not fun anymore. Even with McDavid on the team, like, that's the thing that's most surprising, too. Like, you'd think by default having a team with McDavid would, like, get people to stay. But even Adam Larson was just like, I'm done. Like, I want to do something different. And I think he's going to do well in Seattle. Like, good for him. I think he's going to have fun there. I think he's going to do well, and he's going to be a predominant player. The Oilers, on the other hand, it's like, they went into the offseason. Again, I remember Tyler bragging about how much cap space the Oilers had, and Kenny Holland's going to be a magician and do all these good things. And then I see, oh, Duncan Keith, and no retention, and you paid assets for him. You went to like paid draft picks to take his fucking horrible salary. Okay, fine. Duncan Keith, leader, you know, he won a few cups. Maybe he'll do something good for the Oilers. Let's see. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Okay, cool. Now you're hearing about, okay, Zach Hyman. He's maybe coming to the Oilers. 8 years. Pretty long time. And it's going to be for over $5 million a year. I love the guy. He was great in Toronto. Thank you for your time here, Zach Hyman. But thank fucking God the Toronto Maple Leafs are not offering you 8 years at $5+ million. Like, fuck that. Because the thing is, he's a great player, but every time you get to the playoffs, he'd be injured or like injured leading into it. And then he would go in playing injured. Like the 1 year against the Bruins, I remember he had like a fucking snapped ankle. Like he has like constant knee issues. It's like this dude just plays rough, like beat him up style hockey, like grindy hockey. And I love him for that. But you think 8 years, his body, like there's a reason why he wants 8 years, because he knows his body is not going to survive 8 years. This isn't going to be like a Milan Lucic fucking deal where he'll be good. Like he'll probably be pretty good for like a couple of years playing with McDavid. No doubt you're going to get that $5 million value added out of him for probably like maybe 3 years max. But that's the thing. By year 4, the dude's going to be 33. His knees are going to be fucking completely grinded to dust. Like his body's going to be wrecked. He's not going to be playing on McDavid's line because he's not going to be able to keep up with Connor McDavid anymore by that point. He's going to be playing like bottom 6 minutes, and you're going to be paying him $5 million, $5.5 million for years to come. The dude's going to be 37 by the time the contract ends. So it's like at this point, it's like, okay, Oilers are going into win now fucking mode. Like they got to win a cup in the next few years. I mean, I guess you got 5 years left of McDavid. Consider that, okay, that's your 5-year window. You got McDavid. But if you don't do shit in that 5 years, McDavid's probably gone. Yeah. Like I could see him walking to free agency at that point. And yeah, it's like, okay, finally you got someone to play with him. You got Hyman, but like I can't see him fucking being worth that $5 million for that 5-year window. So I think it's more realistically like, okay, you got this guy for like 3 solid years. By the time it's halfway through, he's probably going to be playing like Milan Lucic, where he's just going to be slow, worn out, and injured. He'll still be throwing around the body, still be trying to be gritty, but I don't think he's going to have the same effect as he did or what you're paying him for. So it's just, and a no movement clause. That's the other thing too, a no move clause. You can't even fucking trade the guy. You can't even be like, okay, we got 3 years, we won a cup. Okay, his value's sky high. Let's fucking move him. No, it's like this guy's just stuck on your team until he's 37 and just getting pushed out on a wheelchair. Like the guy's body is going to be completely fucking just obliterated. And I guess if anything, the sad part, he's going to be an Oiler longer than he'll be a Leaf in his career. Like, so thank you for your time, Zach Hyman. Have fun in Edmonton. I wish you all the best. Good luck, Edmonton. I think you'll like him. He's a great player. He's got heart. He's got grit, but have fun when he's like fucking 34, 35, 36, 37, making over $5 million a year, especially with the flat cap we got now. Like,
it's like they've got the cap space. The issue ends up, so if you start paying Hyman, it's like you've got a pretty established top 6 forward group. The issue then becomes, so you've got Nurse and Keith, and we don't know if Clefbaum's going to be back. It doesn't sound like he will. This is like your left side.
That's the thing. And even if say next year Clefbaum does come back, is he going to be the same player after all these surgeries?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
But the right side, as like you've got some guys. Sure, you've got your Ethan Bears, you've got your Evan Bouchards that might be moving up the ranks. But
sounds like Tyson Barrie. That's another big contract coming up from Holland. Another big payday.
But you've got to pay him first. So it's
that's
like,
the thing. So we'll see.
Those 3, it's like, is that a good enough top 6 to warrant second round and beyond? That's the question.
I guess you got to compare it to maybe other blue lines around the league. Like, what do they got? But I mean, Darnell Nurse, he's great. I think he's going to help push you in a series. Is he going to be able to do what he did fucking this year, playing all those minutes and take you 4 rounds, no fucking way in hell. That guy's going to be beat down and destroyed. Like, you're putting hard miles on him, like, pretty early in his career. So, great D, but I think you need, like, another one of him to really carry the team to as far as you want to go. Like a Chris Pronger, Joe Newen, or Niedermeyer. Scott Niedermeyer type of situation. I'm freaking blanking here. My old man brain here. You need like a tandem of like, okay, if you're depending on like your blue line to take it, you need like fucking just gods among men on your blue line. So you need like 2 Darnell Nurses to carry that team. You can't rely on just one. And I think Clefbaum could have been that second Darnell Nurse, but sadly he's got health issues. And that's kind of like what I wanted to continue, I guess, expanding on the Ken Holland offseason blunders already is now you got Mike Smith signed 2 years, $2.2 million average. The dude's fucking 40 years old. Like, okay, he had a great season this season, but you think he's going to be putting up those numbers at 41 and 42? Like, okay, good luck. And 2.2 million? Jason Spezza's younger and he's making fucking league minimum. And I would consider him like a pretty reasonable, value contract for what you're getting. Leafs legend Jason Spezza.
I wouldn't say that's a fair comparison, but go on.
It's not, well, it's like a goalie versus a player, but it's like, okay, we're giving this dude league min. He knows he's at the end of his career. Mike Smith is quite obviously at the end of his career. Why the hell are you paying him anything more than $1 million a season? You're giving him 2.2 to be your fucking, I guess, your starter? Mike Smith? Like, there's literally no one else you could have fucking went in the offseason to get. There's no one you could have traded for. You fucking went like, you know what, Mike Smith, 2 years, baby. Let's go. 42 years old, fucking play for the Edmonton Oilers. Let's go.
No, I think
Tyler's gonna be roasting us after this episode when he sees it.
Absolutely. I would love to hear it, but honestly, I don't think it's too bad a contract if he's a backup. Because I think there might be something in the plans. Say you go after
Even so, $2 million plus, what, 2.2 for a backup? Like, the Leafs are giving Jack Campbell 1.5, and he's their fucking starter. And he put up a fucking record this year, for God's sakes. And you're giving Mike Smith more than him. Like, even like Chris Drieger just got signed for 3.5, and Mike Smith is just making like a smidge, like a smidge less than him. Like, the dude's fucking 40 years old. Come on, dude. Like, this is the thing. It's like, I want to like the Oilers. I want the Oilers to be good. They have Connor McDavid. But they do dumb shit like this where they signed Mike Smith to $2.2 million and fucking Koskinen to 4.5. Like, that's the thing. Koskinen's their fucking backup currently. And he's making 4.5. But now their starter's making 2.2. So the starter's cheaper. And again, he's a 40-year-old man. Like, that's your goaltending tandem? You think that's going to take you 4 rounds in the Stanley Cup Finals? Like, that's the thing. It's like, the Leafs aren't perfect. We're a dumpster fire all of our own, but there's some just big problems with the Edmonton Oilers when I look at their roster, just how management's going about it, especially right now. Like, it's just, man, I thought Ken Holland was supposed to be good. Like, ew, he is fucking making bad fucking deals. Like, I've done enough GM mode on NHL to fucking, I can do better than him, for God's sake. Like, why the fuck is he in this position where he's giving all these old men fucking millions of dollars? It's like, and he had zero patience to even wait to the free agency to try to acquire anyone. It's like, are you not calling up anybody that's a UFA and like getting conversations with them of like, okay, we have something in the line that I can sign this goalie or I can sign this other younger goalie, younger defense and free agency. Like, why are you making the deals and the moves you're doing? You know what? I'm going to say all this, and then next year, fucking Duncan Keith is going to be a Norris candidate. Smith is going to get nominated for the Vezina. Like, it's just going to be just like Hyman. Hyman's going to get the fucking Rocket Richard or some crazy shit. Like, it's just going to be some ridiculous season just because the hockey guys are going to look at me and you go, you foolish fucking Leafs fan. Talking shit about my Edmonton Oilers? Fuck you, this is what you get. And they're just going to torture me next year.
Yeah, you just can't have that mindset, man. But speaking of goalies, before we wrap up here, let's just get into some trades that came over in.
Yeah, we got a few that happened. We got a few.
And we've got Carolina trading away Alex and Delkovich over to Detroit for the rights to Jonathan Bernier, as is a UFA, and a third in 2021. I
know this pained you a lot today, Trevor. I know this pained you a lot.
I just don't get it. It's like, for a contending team who has just had a breakout goalie come out in
They
second
wanted
half
the
of this year.
goaltending core of the Toronto Maple Leafs from 2012. They wanted Bernier and they want fucking Reimer. That's all there is to it. That's a superstar tandem. They're like, you know what? Let's reunite the boys.
You gotta
Let's get
keep
him back.
Mrazek in mind, though. Gotta keep Mrazek in mind.
I guess if you have those, if you had those three guys, that's not a bad 1, 2, 3 option. I wouldn't be too upset about that, but I mean, why? Why did you trade Nedeljkovic? I thought he was going to be their future starter. I thought he was an up and comer for their team. He was going to be their future fucking Tendy. And they're like, Bernier, give us Bernier.
It's they had being that he was going to be a free agent. You still had restricted free agency with him, I believe. So it's even if you don't sign him, you'll get something more. It's
it sounded like his ask was only $3.5 million, which Drieger got. And what's hilarious is he goes to the Red Wings and he signs 2 years at $3 million per.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a big fuck you to the Hurricanes. Fine, trade me. You're not fucking giving me what I want. You know what? I'll take less money from the team that traded me. Just fuck you. And I bet you he's gonna be lights out this year.
Yeah. And the only other thing to report, another trade with the Arizona Coyotes, where essentially, this is more of a case, but
they got a cool prospect by the name of Cap Space. So it's what do they hand over to him? They gave him Ghost Bear, a 2nd round and a 7th round. Oof. And he's not a bad D. Did the Philadelphia Flyers just fucking hate him? They're just we don't want, we hate you, we despise you, get out of here.
I think it's, as I mentioned in the last episode, I think it's just a case he fell out of favor with Coach Alain Vigneault. And it's just, since he came in, it just
management just didn't like. So the staff, the coaching staff, and everything just kind of didn't like what he was doing.
So they unloaded his contract to Arizona, and then Arizona will take it. Goes.
Yeah, one thing I'll say about Arizona this offseason so far is, they've taken on deals of, Andrew Ladd and Ghost Bear here that obviously the other teams didn't want, but they got some free picks out of it. Yeah, they lose some cap space, but the thing is, Arizona already lost enough draft picks because of their draft shenanigans going on. What was it, last year? They did the testing too early, so they lost their fucking 1st round pick or something. So
they lost their first for this year, and then I think it was a 2nd from last year, just simply because they didn't have a 1st because they had traded away.
Okay. So this is the thing is they're stocking their cupboards. They're kind of recovering from their mistakes, let's say. Their small mistakes leading up to this point, and they're getting bodies that can actually fucking play in their lineup, actually human beings. Andrew Ladd, he's a shadow of his former self, but he's still pretty good. He can crunch minutes. I think you can put him on the penalty kill. He's going to be a good mentor for the guys around him. Ghost Bear, I think offensively he's a great defenseman. He's a great offensive defenseman. He's not great in his own zone, but the Coyotes play a very defensive system. So if anything, he's going to have other guys to shelter him. And if anything, hopefully let him shine a little more so he can kind of help them with a little bit more offense, a little bit more goal scoring, because they need that. They need goal scoring. They're good at holding a team to maybe 1 or 2 goals a game, but then they can only fucking score a goal a game or 2 goals a game. So it's you need to be able to start a couple more goals and get some more offensive going in those situations. And I think he's going to help out Arizona. So Arizona's kind of just been fortunate with other teams obviously trying to get out from contracts they don't want anymore, and they've taken advantage of it. So good on Arizona for making these moves.
They're taking on cap space, but as long as injuries don't occur or there's an injury history to the players, but they could certainly be 2 players that bring a veteran leadership to this team, and I don't see why not. It's if you're getting that, you're getting the players, you're getting the picks, you're essentially just taking on the cap space. You're not giving anything back.
And that's the thing. If you can afford it, if you have the room and you're really taking on, it's why not? Yeah, exactly. Because the thing too is I wouldn't say Arizona at this point in time too is a very attractive market. If I was a free agent, I would not be looking at Arizona as I want to sign there. It would be one of the fucking last destinations on my list. So at this point, I don't think they're attracting too many in the UFC market. They got to acquire some bigger names from trades like this, I think, really to, and they just really have to improve their reputation and their culture around the organization. And maybe these guys coming in will help them, especially Andrew Ladd. I think he's going to be a big difference. But I think having guys like this come in are going to help the team at least get a bit more of a better rep, maybe in the community, and maybe just with fellow hockey players too. Like maybe if these guys turn it around, they have a good team, they have fun, and these guys give some good feedback to maybe other buddies on teams they played for, they can convince a couple of guys like, hey, we actually got something going on here. Maybe you come and join us, right? And maybe they can convince other guys down the line if they change up the culture here. Like, okay, Arizona is a attractive market, and that's the thing too. The NHL, I know themselves are essentially trying to save Arizona because it's been for a long time. Like even myself has said, fuck this team, move them somewhere else, like relocate them. They're just a dumpster fire, especially with all the shenanigans they had going on. And they're just like a money pit. It's just like, get this team out of here. But it looks like both the new ownership and like the NHL have a highly vested interest in preserving this team and building into something. And they're obviously making those moves this offseason to like, okay, we got to make something work here. And they're actually willing to spend some money on some players, on some names, get some guys over to Arizona just to do something, just to try to get some kind of good reputation or positive publicity in this situation. So it'll be interesting. I don't think those guys are going to make them maybe playoff bound or Stanley Cup bound, but I think they're going to improve them as a team. And I think that's just really all Arizona can ask for at this point is like, at least we got a little bit better. That's all they can really do.
Well, that's going to wrap things up for us today. Thanks for joining us, and we will catch you in the next one.
Yes, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching the latest episode of the Bottom Six Podcast. Have a good one.